Hey everyone, I'm Bee. Welcome back to Read and Roam. I got an email from a friend who's on vacation. She went on a hike today and said it was fun. Check this out. I went to a nice area. I followed a trail and saw lots of things. The weather was good and the hike was really fun. That wasn't very detailed, was it? It's hard to picture where she is when she only uses words like nice and great. I'll ask her for a more detailed description so that I can imagine I'm really there. Have you ever read a story that made you feel like you were really there? That's what we're going to explore today. How authors use words to bring their stories to life. Authors use different techniques to make their stories interesting. One way is through sensory details. Check this out. As the small children giggled and snacked on salty potato chips, the smell of the ocean drifted through the warm summer air. Notice how the author describes how things look, sound, taste, smell, and feel? Sensory details are descriptive words or phrases that use the five senses: sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. They help the reader imagine what's going on in the story by creating vivid imagery, meaning a clear and detailed picture in the reader's mind. Today, let's look at how authors use sensory details in settings. We learned about settings a while back. What do you remember? The setting is an important part of a story describing where and when events happen. Let's read this text about a setting. As I read, try to spot words or phrases that create imagery, a detailed picture in your mind that includes sounds, feelings, tastes, smells, and sights. Cars honked and tires screeched as people hurried across the busy street. Tall buildings towered above, their windows reflecting the bright morning sun. The smell of fresh bread drifted from a nearby cafe, mixing with the smoky scent of food carts. I took a bite of a delicious muffin, enjoying the burst of sweet blueberry. I wrapped my hands around my hot tea, feeling the heat warm up my cold fingers. Did you notice any words that engage the five senses? Let's start by finding sensory details related to sight. We can search for details that help us picture what something looks like, such as words describing colors, shapes, size, light, and movement. Here's one. Tall buildings towered above. The words tall and towered above help us visualize how big these buildings are. Here's another one. Windows reflecting the bright morning sun. The author uses the word reflecting to help us picture sunlight bouncing off the windows. Now let's find sensory details related to smell. To help us, search for words similar to smell, like scent or fragrance, and words that describe types of smells, like fruity or stinky. Look here. The smell of fresh bread, and the smoky scent of food carts. Which words help you imagine these smells? Fresh and smoky scent. Now what about touch? We need to find words that describe how something feels, like a texture or temperature. Check out this sentence. Feeling the heat warm up my cold fingers. This description gives us a sense of how the character's hands feel. Now it's your turn to identify sensory details related to sound and taste. For sound, pay attention to words that describe noises and volume. For taste, look for words that describe the flavor along with the texture and temperature of food. Pause the video here to highlight the sensory details you find. Let's check. Cars honked and tires screeched are related to sound. while delicious muffin enjoying the burst of sweet blueberry is connected to taste. These sensory details and the ones we found earlier create vivid imagery, almost like the author is painting a picture with their words. Now let's delve a little deeper. How important are sensory details in making settings immersive, pulling us into the story like we're really there? Would a setting still be interesting if it had only one or two sensory details? Let's find out. I'm going to read two versions of the same setting, one with only one sensory detail and another with several. First, I'll read the version with just one. As I read, try to picture the setting in your mind. If you want, close your eyes to help you imagine it. Ready? Here's the first text. Children were near roller coasters. The scent of buttery popcorn and sweet cotton candy filled the air. There were game booths and crowds. Oliver lined up for his favorite ride, which went past him quickly. Did you notice any sensory details? There was only one related to smell. The scent of buttery popcorn and cotton candy filled the air. But was that enough to bring the story to life? Probably not. Without other sensory details, the description is plain and lacks detail, making it difficult to create vivid imagery. But what changes when I read a version with many sensory details? If you want, close your eyes again and check out the difference. Children squealed excitedly as roller coasters rumbled overhead. The scent of buttery popcorn and sweet cotton candy filled the air. Bright flashing lights twinkled from game booths, and big colorful balloons bobbed above the crowds. Oliver lined up for his favorite ride, its red tracks twisting and looping high into the sky. He felt the ground vibrate beneath him as it whooshed past. What did you notice? This version makes readers feel more immersed in the story. But why? Sensory details show readers what's happening instead of telling them, making stories more exciting. For example, the details about the children's squeals and the roller coaster's rumbling helped me imagine the sounds as if I were actually there in the scene. The author could have just written, "It was loud," to describe the sounds, but instead they showed us using sensory details, making the story come alive. What made the setting feel immersive, like you were actually in the story for you? It could be something related to sight, sound, touch, taste, or smell. Pause the video to record one sensory detail that brought the setting to life. You might have picked up on the smell of cotton candy. Maybe you noticed the balloons. Perhaps the ground vibrating caught your attention. There weren't any details about taste, though, but that's okay. Authors may not use every sense. They choose the ones that best bring the scene to life. Whatever sensory detail stood out to you most, they all worked together to pull us into the story in an exciting way. Wow, it's amazing how sensory details not only make settings vivid, they also make them immersive. Hey, remember my friend who told me about her hike? I asked her for a more detailed description, and she's just written back. Let's read it. I followed a narrow dirt trail through enormous trees, feeling the warm sun on my face. I saw colorful wildflowers and heard a bubbling stream. As I hiked, the scent of pine filled the air. Now that she's used sensory details, I feel like I'm really there. Next time you read a story, see if you notice sensory details. See you soon, everyone, and remember, where there are words, there's a world to explore. Hey!